Hey guys, this is Stephanie and I am Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. Today is day 15 of the Spring To It Videothon. I hope you guys have been having fun so far this month. I hope you've had a chance to participate and do some of our videos, but the month is only halfway over. So if you haven't done videos, it is not too late. I have all that information linked down below. Today's topic is books I want to reread. Now here's the thing. I feel like in the Booktube community, it's like you always have to read new books. And even if you're reading older books, they need to be the first time you've read it. Like, I feel like rereads are almost frowned upon, but I also feel like that is like a limitation that we put on ourselves. Personally, I love to reread books because I have a different perspective, usually the second time over. So I always enjoy it. Or sometimes I read a second time and I realize this book actually isn't great, which is also good. It's yet another perspective. The books I most consistently reread are the Harry Potter books. I actually read probably the first 3 every year, wanting to read the whole series, but sometimes I'll stall somewhere in the 3rd, 4th, 5th book. And I think I've actually only read the 7th book once. So I need to reread those sometime, but I'm not putting them on my list because I kind of feel that's a given. And also a side note, I probably will not be rereading all these books this year, though I would like to. I also feel like there's so many new books I want to read. I'll probably read those. I might reread 1 or 2 of these, but I don't think I'll be rereading all of these. Now, I'm not necessarily going to be talking about all these books in detail. I have read all of them, so you can watch some of my past videos to hear more about them. The first one I'm going to talk about is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is the Final Empire, the first book in the first Mistborn trilogy. The other 2 are right there, and I actually would like to reread the whole trilogy. I finished this trilogy like in December, I think, and I loved it. And at the end of it, I was like, oh, there are all these things. I want to go back and start over and read from the beginning so I can see all these things from a different point of view. So I really do want to reread this book. I don't know if I will because Brandon Sanderson has so many other great books that I should be reading that I'm kind of like, okay. So I'll probably go on to the next Mistborn trilogy. Eventually, I will read Way of Kings, Warbreaker, Elantris, and all of those other great books. So I feel like if I were to go do a reread now, it would be like, I don't know. I want to, but I'm like, but there are all these other good books by the same author. I should just read those. The next one I have is Reread by Kirsten Gier. I loved this book. I feel like it was popular on YouTube and then it became popular to hate it. And I was like, I know it has some problems to it, like the timey-wimey stuff really does not balance out very well, but I liked it. I thought it was great. Actually, this is the series that I found Booktube from because I had finished the series, the trilogy, and I was looking for reviews and somebody to say, yes, I felt that way too. So I Googled it and it took me to YouTube and I watched a couple people's videos. The first one just was like, oh, it was so good. And I'm like, but it had problems. And the second one was like, I had problems with this. And I was like, yes. But problems or not, it's still a series I do enjoy, and it's still a series I kind of like to reread. It's not very long either, and it's a super quick read. Like, I think I read all 3 books in a matter of a week because you just kind of fly through them. They're really, really easy reads. So eventually I'd like to reread these, but I don't know if I'm gonna do it this year or not. The next reread I would love to do would be The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is one I actually might reread this year. This is one of those books that the longer it's been since I've read it, the more like the better it gets. Kind of like, like a wine. The older the wine is, the better it tastes or whatever. I don't really drink wine, so I have no idea. But this book has gotten better over time. Like, I read it and I'm like, oh, I do like that book. Oh, this is so great. So yeah, I super duper enjoyed this book last year, and I really think I might reread it this year. I might save it till like December or something. I'm saving a lot of my rereads this year till December to make sure I get all the books I have goals to get read, but did enjoy it. The next one I'd like to reread is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I really enjoyed this book. I read it I think I read it after a readathon last year, actually. I didn't read it for the readathon, but I had gotten it and I wanted to read it for the readathon, but I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can. And I think I was nervous because it's an adult book. I thought it might be a little slow. It is slow, but somehow super engaging at the same time. So I really enjoyed this one. I do think I might possibly reread it this year. So I read it in like August. I think my husband read it in like December, and he was talking to me about it, and there are a few things I'm like, oh, I'd forgotten that happened. I forgot that too. So I was like, I just need to reread it, and then I'll remember all of the things. But it was a book that I super duper enjoyed last year, and if I don't read it this year, I can almost guarantee I will read it next year. And the last book I have for you is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. And it's not a very pretty book, so I don't think I'm gonna hold it up. It's a really old book. I have the pretty cover, but it's a pocket book, so it's like, you know, short and super thick, and those just aren't my favorite books. Plus it's kind of falling apart because I've read it a lot. But this is one I actually think I got at a garage sale for like $1.25. And I've read this particular version one time, though it does kind of look like Bible pages. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't like that part. I was like, just use the whole page. But I read this one maybe once, and I've read the other one numerous times, hence why it's falling apart. I love this book. Like, I know lots of booktubers that are like, oh my goodness, it's so slow. Oh my goodness, it's so wordy. It's so old-fashioned. And I'm like, well, it was written in like the 30s. But this was a book that I think I was in 8th grade maybe, and I went into the library, and I was friends with the librarian. That was me. I was that kid that loved the librarian in middle school and in high school. I was like, oh, what books do we have? I was a pretty big geek, and I asked her for the thickest book they had. She took me down the aisle, and there it was at the end, and it was the pocket edition, the short, thick one. And she said, this is the biggest book I have. It's a little over 1,000 pages. And I was like, I will read that book. I have no idea why I want to read it, but I did. So I actually read it. It took me some time. It took me probably a few months. I remember renewing it multiple times to read it, but I really enjoyed it. Like, I was reading it and I was like, this is so interesting. And we're looking at the war from a different perspective, and we're looking at the relations at the time, like how girls married so young and they were expected to have kids, and just all of it. And it was really interesting to me. And then of course I watched the movie afterwards. Then of course I got mad at the movie because I was like, you took out all of this really good stuff. What's wrong with you? Even though the movie was like 3.5 hours long. And then about a year later, I was like a freshman in high school, and I was like, I want to reread that. That was a really good book. So I think I checked it out from the public library. I don't think my high school library had it. And I got super sick. I got like bronchitis or something over Christmas break. So I actually read that one in like maybe a week or so. And I really liked it all the more and had all the more insight. And I think I read it almost every year over Christmas vacation. I kind of made like a hobby of doing that. And I think I bought it after that. I think I went out and I bought the mass market paperback, the one that is falling apart. And even after high school, I know I read it a few times after that. So all told, I probably read that book like 7 or 8 times, but I don't think I have read it in the last like 10 years. And I'm like, I should read that again. So I think I'm going to give it a go, try and read it sometime this year. I don't know how much time I'll have because it is a chunker. It does take some time, but it's one I might actually read this year. And that is it. That would be the top 5 rereads for me of books that I would love to reread, though I might not necessarily actually reread them. Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what book or books you would love to reread this year. I would love to know. Also, don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe and check out everybody's channels down below. All of my co-hosts, we have Brews and Reviews, Brooke Clark, Christina's Journey, Danny Buxton, and The Story with Serenity Dawn. They will all be talking about their rereads as well. And that is everything I have. I will look forward to seeing you guys same place, same time tomorrow. Goodbye!